So we've got the hood back on, we've got the machine back together, got it plugged in, we have the dust collector hooked up. You always need to use dust collection on the planer. This thing produces a lot of coarse chips, a lot of them. And if you don't have dust collection pulling that away from the machine, it can make a heck of a mess. Wood chips can build up on the bed, which you need the bed clear that the board can sit on. It can affect not only accuracy, but also safety if you're not pulling the wood chips away from the machine with dust collection. So I've got to have the dust collection turned on, and then on the machine itself, I've got two things I need to turn on here. One of them, this is the controlled feed. It's adjustable, so the more I turn it clockwise, the faster it goes. I usually don't go full speed. A slower feed rate will get you a smoother cut every time, just like with the joiner, just like with the table saw. Slower feed rate always gets you a smoother cut. And over here, this is the on-off switch for the cutter head. Green is go, red is stop. So we're going to get a board, get ready to go here. I always want to stand on this. I don't want to stand like right behind the planer. Usually want to stand to this side where I'm next to the controls. From here, I can make an adjustment on height. I can immediately slow it down, speed it up, or I can just turn off the cutter head. One of the most common things I see is people miscalculate that first cut, and they try to make a cut that is way too heavy and instantly puts the machine under just an impossible strain. Belts start squealing. Yeah, people start to panic. So I always want to stand over here next to the controls where I can make any adjustments necessary right away. Okay, you never want to plane more than one board at a time. You can have two boards that are very, very similar, and just assume, you may assume as an operator, that they are the same thickness. In fact, one could be just a little bit thinner, and if it is, that board is going to grip the thickest, the in-feed roller is going to grip the thickest board, and it may not make full contact with this one, in which case this one's going to go through the planer, and this one could get spit out at a very high rate of speed. It could be a violent kickback. So you never plane more than one board at a time. If we're going to plane a warp board, and I purposely chose this board so you can see the warp in this board. Okay, you can see that this is like a convex surface here. Okay, so if I have what I call a crown in a board, I always want to plane it. I always want to start that with the crown up, never crown down, where it can just kind of rock through there like a canoe. You want to turn it over so you have crown up to start that cut. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grip the board both sides. I'm going to push it in. Once the in-feed roller grabs it, you're not pushing it in anymore. You're just merely guiding it to make sure it stays straight. You never want to get you got to be careful you don't get fingers caught between the board and the bed when you're feeding it in, because when that in-feed roller grabs it, it is going to slam it down against the bed very tightly, and that can really hurt. So never get your fingers between the bed and the board. This is always easier with an assistant. They're out there. That way you're not moving around the machine constantly. You can stand over here and feed the boards. And they're just there to guide the board out straight. They don't need to pull it. They just need to support it, because if we're doing a long, heavy board, there's a lot of weight hanging out there, and they just need to support it to make a nice, even cut. if it's a real long, heavy board and it's really sagging down there, it will affect the depth of cut on this end of the board. So we want them to support it, and we want them to just make sure it's getting steered straight. And then once the planer releases that board, then they're going to get it out of the way and get ready for another one. You never want to put extra things on the planer, you know, tape measures, pencils, other boards. You should have all of that close by and ready to plane. So we're going to plane that board crown up. Now, if you notice that the machine seems to be laboring, as in you're trying to make a cut that is a little bit too heavy, the first thing you want to try to do is slow the feed rate and fix it that way. See if you can get that feed rate slowed down to where the machine can catch up. You can't feed the board through the machine faster than the blades can cut it. That's what's going to cause, you know, belts to squeal and rubber to burn and all that sort of stuff. So first you want to try to slow the feed rate down so it can catch up. If that won't do it, then you either have the option of lowering the bed to decrease the amount of cut, or just turning the machine off. And if you're not sure, it's just better to just turn the machine off. Because, like I said, when this thing starts making unhappy noises, kids tend to panic, and they may just come up here and just start cranking this one way or the other, and may make it worse rather than better. So if in doubt, I would say you should just shut it off. But your first thing to try to adjust would be the feed rate. Okay. The heaviest cut you would ever make, all right, if I'm just planing just a soft pine board, you know, 2x4, whatever, from the lumber yard, yes, it's possible that, you know, I could take 2 full turns between cuts. That's about 1/8 of an inch. That is the heaviest cut you would ever make on the planer. All right. Most of the time, you know, I'm going to be about a 1/2 turn, maybe 3/4, maybe even 1 turn between passes. And that's generally about the most we'll ever go at a time. Okay. So if I go 1/2 turn, that's 1/32 of an inch. And when I'm doing wide boards, or really hard species, you know, walnut, oak, hickory, maple, things like that, we just want to back that adjustment off so we're not taking as much at a time. Let the machine do its work. Don't get in a hurry. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to plane this warp board crown side up. All right. And I'm going to try to get you in there where you can see the distance between the board and the pressure bar. We're going to go about right there. That's going to make a cut, I believe. About 1/8 of an inch. Okay? So, we're going to turn our dust collector on. Make sure everything's hooked up. I'm going to turn my cutter head on. I'm going to turn my controlled feet on, not all the way. I'm going to grip the board firmly with both sides. You got to push pretty hard to get it underneath that end feed roller. Okay, once it has it, it's making its cut. All right. So you can see what was our crown board. We've flattened out the surface of that. Okay. So now if I wanted to plane the other side, I could. All right. Something else to note. What we've got here, see if you can see this is a panel that was glued together, like 4 2x4s. I glued this together for the purpose of showing you this side needs to be planed. Once you have a panel glued together, you can send it through the planer and smooth it, make it look like one smooth board. This side has been done, and you can see those blue lines virtually disappear, and it looks like a real nice panel. All right. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. And as with any machine, when you're done with it, clean up your mess for the next person. If you change any settings, set them back to default settings.